this video I'm going to knit Randig, a pattern that is available for free in my Ravelry store. To start, we're going to knit the sleeves. I have already knit my first sleeve and I'm going to knit the second one in this video. For this pattern I am using a tubular cast on. I am using a crochet method, but you can use any method you are comfortable with. If you want to use the crochet method, start by chaining a few stitches with a piece of waste yarn. Grab the needle you are going to use. The next step is to crochet half of the stitches you need to cast on for the sleeve around the needle. End by chaining a few stitches once again. Next, you are going to grab your main collar. For the first row, when using the crochet method, you are going to knit one and then do a yarn over for every stitch. You will then have the correct amount of stitches cast on. We are now going to start knitting 2 setup rows in the round. You will want to make sure that your stitches are not twisted. For the first setup row, you are going to knit one, then slip one with the yarn in front of the stitch. You are going to repeat the 2 steps until you have worked all of the stitches. For the second setup row, you are going to do the opposite. Slip 1 stitch with the yarn behind the stitch, then purl 1. When you have completed the 2 setup rows, you are then going to knit a few rows in 1 by 1 rib. When you have knit a few rows, you can unravel and pull out the waste yarn. Continue knitting in 1 by 1 rib until the cuff measures 7 cm. A tip is to count the rows to make sure you are knitting the same amount of rows for both sleeves. Next, you're going to change to larger needles. At the same time, you're also going to decrease a few stitches. Next, we're going to knit 1 row before starting the stripes. When knitting stripes, I like to carry all of the colors with me. To do this, we're going to start by tying all of our contrast colors together. Take the next color you're going to use and wrap it around all of the other colors, going behind the strands and to the front before you start knitting. Repeat this step every time you change colors. This will keep all of the colors in place, minimize visible changes between colors, and carry all of the colors with you. Make sure you don't wrap the yarn too tight or too loose. You want to still be able to stretch the fabric slightly. The sleeves have some increases. I'm using the method make one forwards loop and make one backwards loop. At the start of the row you make one forwards loop, and at the end of the row you make one backwards loop. The reason I'm using this method is that make one right or make one left slightly disturbs the stripes. The last step of the sleeve is to bind off stitches at the start and at the end of the row. Bind off 4 stitches at the start of the row, knit until you have 3 stitches left, and bind off the remaining 3 stitches. When you have knit both sleeves, the next step is to knit the body. I have already knit the ribbing for the body, since it is knit in the same way as the cuffs for the sleeves, but in a larger scale. As before, I am going to change my needles while decreasing stitches. I have once again tied all of my contrast colors together, and I am going to start by wrapping the yarn I'm going to be using around all of the other strands. During the last row of the body, I am going to bind off 7 stitches at each side for each sleeve. During the next row, I am going to join the body and the sleeves. The bound off stitches at the body and at the arms are going to line up against each other. They're later going to be sewn together. I'm going to start by knitting along the body until I reach the place where I first bound off stitches. Then I'm going to continue by knitting all of the stitches of one of the sleeves. Next, I am going to continue along the front of the body until I reach the second place where I bound off stitches. I am then going to knit along the remaining sleeve. Lastly, I'm going to knit the remaining stitches of the back of the body. When you have joined the body and the sleeves, it should look something like this. I am now going to place 4 stitch markers, one before and after each sleeve. You can place your stitch markers while joining the body and the sleeves if you find it difficult to see where to place them. Next, we are going to decrease at the markers. When there are 2 stitches remaining before the marker, slip, step, knit, then slip the marker, then knit 2 stitches together. You're going to repeat at all 4 markers. When you have completed all of your raglan decreases, you are going to change to a smaller needle. You are then going to knit 7 centimeters of 1x1 rib before binding off in pattern. To bind off in pattern means that you knit the knit stitches and purl the purl stitches while you bind off using a standard bind off. When you have bound off the neckline, you're going to sew it down on the inside of the garment. To finish the garment, we are going to weave in the ends and sew the underarms shut. Start by turning your garment inside out. When weaving in the ends, I'm going to start by untying all of the collars, then I'm going to weave in the strands one by one, following the fabric of the knit. Lastly, I'm going to sew the underarm shut. It is important to use the same color as the rows that were bound off. The sweater is now almost complete. The only remaining step is to block the garment. It is important to block your garments. Here is a comparison of a blocked and an unblocked garment. You can see how the stitches have relaxed and are neater. You can also see how the 1x1 rib looks a lot better.